Hey, welcome back to the Secret Underground Lair. Today we are going to be putting the dovetail joints in each of the face pieces and the legs, joining them together, doing our final finish on the top, and attaching that top to the legs. Final assembly. Hope you enjoy. So I have the router table set up to cut the dowel or the dovetail joint on the face pieces. And I have marked the face pieces, being very careful here to make sure that I note this is the bottom. So I got the bottom marked. And I have marked each of the surfaces where we're going to be putting a dovetail to indicate where that dovetail is going to go so I don't have any mistakes and put it in the wrong way. I've done the same thing on the legs, and the thing I have to be careful of on the leg is that on the rear legs there's only going to be one dovetail cut, and I have to make sure I get that in the right spot. So I have labeled this as the face for the rear left leg. That's where I want the dovetail to be. And on the two front legs there's going to be a dovetail cut in each side. So I've got the face labeled and the sides indicated where I want to have that, and same thing with the rear. So labeling everything so I don't make any mistakes. It's really easy to do otherwise. So I'll set the camera up and we'll start doing these dovetail joints. Alrighty, so I've got all our cuts now in our face pieces. So I'm going to move the fence back a half an inch, or sorry, 1/4 of an inch, to give us that little lead on our legs. So I'll come back when I have that set. Okay, the fence is moved back half an inch, or 1/4 of an inch rather. So we'll start on the leg pieces. I'm going to keep the fence, or the face up against the fence. And I have a line marked here, as you saw me go earlier. I'm going 2.5 inches on these ones, not 3 inches. So away we go. All right, let's do a test fit, see how they go. So I got all the pieces in. I'm not happy though, I have, the pieces are a little bit loose. These ones are okay. There's a few joints that are okay. This one is not bad. A little loose. This one is too loose. This one's a little too loose. That one's too loose. This one is very loose. Not really sure what the difference is there, but I think the problem started with the bit. My router bit was a little high. So I should have checked that first. Therefore, I'm going to have to do a little bit of something to try and tighten these joints up. Come back in a minute when I have some thoughts on that. All right, a couple little embarrassing moments here. The loose fit was because I was using the wrong tenon pieces. And I had cut a sample tenon, a dovetail, one of these little dovetail tenons. I'd cut a sample strip to kind of prove the method would work. And I abandoned that strip because the grain orientation was wrong. It was running across the dovetail rather than the width of the rather than the kind of the height of the dovetail. So the grain was oriented the wrong way. Anyway, so looking at this joint to figure out why it was sloppy, I noticed that the grain was the wrong direction. And then I looked over on my work table and realized that I had the proper dovetail cut. And that's this one. And that fits in here beautifully, just snug, just the right fit. But probably still just a little too snug without a little sanding. And I ran into then a problem trying to slip it into this piece. And I'll show you on another sample here. So you can see on this dovetail, this edge here is very thin. And by putting in too much force, it's cracking that off. So I sanded the dovetail just a little bit here to remove just a little bit off the edge. Sorry, off the edges here. Hopefully that'll make it slip in there a little bit easier, and I'll just have to go very slowly and carefully as I fit them into these pieces. The legs themselves are fine, but these guys are sensitive, let's call it that, sensitive. Anyway, at least the mystery of why the dovetails didn't fit in the joint is solved. Now I just have to be careful about how they're applied to these pieces. So I've been trying to do a little bit of thinking about why these dowels are so snug and giving me a little bit of grief going into these oak legs. And it occurred to me, on the previous table had oak legs and pine faces. So the pine had a lot of give, where the oak, which I'm now using on the faces, does not have any give. So it occurred to me that maybe if I treat this dovetail joint with a wire wheel, I would get some ridges in it and therefore a little give. So I've treated this one and I'm going to put it in. Let's see how this fits. So a little bit of treatment. This one fits in well. It's a little snug, not terribly snug, but with some glue that'll be wonderful. And that's kind of the fit I was looking for. And in terms of the leg, again, snug, but well, that works really well. I think that's the treatment to use. Okay, so I'm going to take this off again, put some glue in there, and then we'll put this joint together. I like the fit of that joint. That's just fitting perfectly, no wiggle. Okay, I'm gonna go treat the other dovetails, the wire wheel. Be back in a minute. All right, using that little wire brush on the dovetail tenon really made a difference. They slipped in quite well. Got nice fits all along here, but I had a catastrophe here. On this joint, what happened is this piece here broke off. As we were putting these together, I pointed out that that was a very small join there, a very small piece of wood, and could not take the force. It actually didn't happen while I was inserting the tenon. It happened while I was moving the piece around, and it just couldn't handle the movement. So, yeah, a bit of a problem. However, I think I can, if this repair holds, we'll be okay. What I'll be doing to mount this onto the top is we'll be putting in the our little figure 8 joints. I'm going to put them on each of the face pieces and of course on the back. And I think, yeah, I may want to double them up, in fact, on the face pieces, just to make sure they don't move around. Or I might do face and legs, so put one here on the leg, one on the face, one on the leg, face, leg, so that we eliminate any movement that's likely to happen and put stress on that joint. Rats. It's going so well, you know. But hey, lessons learned, you know. Next time around, we'll make this piece a little bit thicker, at least certainly at the join. There's a good reason for doing that. Make sure that the dovetail is centered on this piece. I think on this, what I did on these guys is I had it a little to one side. So always learning something new. Okay, I'm gonna work on the back now. Cut the back to this height, just a little over 3 inches. And then we'll be ready to assemble the whole thing onto the top. Next bit is figuring out the length. But before I do that, I'm just going to trim off one end here. So this will be a good starting point. Now I can put that up on the back of the table and figure out how long we want to cut it. We're going to measure it off the back just by placing the piece on the table, lining this up with the back edge of the back leg, just a 1/4 inch in, same as the face is on the face of the leg. And I mark the line over here where I want to cut, so I'm even with the, like a 1/4 inch from the face of the leg on this side. Just going to give this a sand first. Okay, I think we're ready for attaching the tabletop. I'll take everything off again after it has been assembled, quite likely, just to do a sand up to 180 on everything. Okay, I have things just sitting on the tabletop now. The back is going to be affixed to the leg, positioned like this, so there's a little bit of a gap here, which matches the gap on the leg on this side. All these pieces are sitting nicely in here, with one exception I'll come back to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the back to the legs. That'll just provide a little bit more stability, because I am a little bit nervous about these joints still. And I think by having the back on screwed into the legs, that'll just kind of help keep everything a little bit more secure. In fact, I might put 2 screws in each leg just to avoid any twisting. Now, I do have one challenge. I made a mistake, didn't catch this. This is sitting down a little bit, you know, it's a little proud of the leg. So I'm gonna have to take a little bit off that. Probably just with some sanding, we'll probably do it. But I do need to get, yeah, I'm gonna have to sand that, but I have to take the legs off. And I wanna have some security, which is why I'm thinking to attach the legs to the back, just to strengthen everything up. So I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna drill the pilot holes, put the screws in, then we'll take the legs off and deal with that little proudness there. So I pre-drilled these holes on the drill press and countersunk them already. So now I just need to go through this hole into the leg. And I've set my bit to be the length of the screw. And I'm going to put this screw in right now just so that the piece is held firm and won't move around when I drill the next holes. And I was fairly generous, that's a 1/8 inch bit. So I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the wood to cause it to split here. That's just the width of the shank of the screw. So the grain or the threads of the screw are going right into the are binding, but I'm not causing any binding by the shank. Does that make any sense? Okay, back is on. That should give a little bit more strength to the piece as a whole. Not so worried about these guys falling, the front legs falling out anymore. Although I still want to be really careful. So I'm just going to flip this off the table, set it down here on the floor in front of me, so that I can sand off that little piece that's proud. So this is our little bit that slipped on me. I didn't pay attention to that, didn't catch it. So I'm going to have to sand that. I'll just sand that down to try and get a nice flush line across here. Could use a plane on that. Okay, I actually was able to use the plane on that. I just had to find a good way to mount it. So it was kind of stick these legs through the table saw and a little convoluted, but I got it. So that's a reasonably flush edge there. I'm okay with that. Next little bit, I think, is going to have to be sanding off all the glue over, the over-gluing that I've done, where I've got glue spots everywhere. As this piece is being stained, the glue will just wreak havoc on the stain when it goes on. So I want to go over it all, get rid of all the glue marks, and then we'll drill some little holes here for our figure 8 fasteners. Not sure yet if I want to put them on the leg or if I want to put them on the middle part or both. Anyway, think about that as I'm sanding it. So that's what our table is going to look like. I think that'll be all right. And in terms of attaching the fasteners, I'm going to put 2 fasteners on each of the front 2 legs and 2 fasteners on the back. And I think that should probably be sufficient. So I'm going to get them attached, all the holes drilled, put in and attached. Then I can take the whole thing, take the top off again, give it a wet sand because I need to raise the grain before staining this. So run some water over it, give it a sand, and then we're ready for stain. How about that? So let me get those holes marked on our tabletop. I'll come back when I'm ready to do that. Okie dokie. Now the time has come to decide whether I want to use the plug side for the top or the other side for the top. And I think I'm going to go with the plug side on the top. Maybe a mistake, but we're going to go with it. Might seek a second opinion before drilling the holes though. All right, decision made. The plug side is going to be on the underside of the cabinet. It just kind of looks a little weird. So we'll go with the more honest approach on the top side, even though it is a little more pockmark. Yeah, it's more honest. Okay, so I'm going to mark these holes. Oh, I just bumped it again. I had it set. And I'm going to drill and put screws in these holes. Then I'm going to set this front one, just because I need to make this shift a little bit, do a little bit of a twist on it. So we get those drilled and set. So now the trouble is I've got to take these off again. Fiddle. At least one of them off. Okay, there we are. Securely mounted. Good fit underneath. We'll stand it up again. And there is our table assembled. Kind of like the look of that. So next thing to do will be a wet sand. I'll wet it down, then give it a sand. That'll raise the grain. Sand it down, and then we're ready to put on some stain. Not sure about the stain color yet. Have to think about that overnight. But that's it, assembled. So a little bit of trouble with these dovetails, but in the end managed to get it together. Learned a little trick about using the wire brush on the dovetail tenons themselves to give a little place for the glue and give them a little bit of space to move, particularly when it's oak to oak and the wood isn't going to have any give on it. All right, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.